When they came to the crowd, a man approached Jesus and knelt before him. "Lord, have mercy on my son," he said. "He has seizures and is suffering greatly. He often falls into the fire or into the water. I brought him to your disciples, but they could not heal him. Bring the boy here to me." Jesus rebuked the demon, and it came out of the boy, and he was healed at that moment. Then the disciples came to Jesus in private and asked, "Why couldn't we drive it out?" He replied, "Because you have so little faith. Truly, I tell you, if you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you."
Do you prefer a mountain vacation or a beach vacation? The majority of the time, I love mountain vacations, and I love hiking mountains. I love all the prep work and conquering those obstacles. I love physically preparing for the hikes. I love mentally preparing for the hikes. I love looking up at a mountain and thinking, I am going to climb to the top of that mountain. I love that challenge. But every once in a while, I enjoy a good beach vacation. And to be honest, I'd be pretty frustrated if a mountain interrupted my beach vacation. I can imagine showing up to a resort in Mexico and in my swim trunks and my flip-flops and just getting ready to go dive into the pool. And when I get there, they say, well, you've got to check into your room, and your room is right on the other side of that really tall mountain. And I'd probably go, cool, it's got a good view. Let's hop in the car and drive there. And they go, no, you're going to have to hike that mountain. And it's about a 4-mile journey. You're going to have to carry your bags. If you want to get to your room, you're going to have to hike that mountain. Friends, that would be an obstacle that would just frustrate me. It would kind of knock the wind out of my sails. I wonder if any obstacles have ever popped up like that for you. I know for many of us, we enjoy a good challenge. We enjoy a good challenge at work, in school, in the church, in our community, in our families, when we can prepare for them, when we can mentally get ready for them, when we can train for them. We like challenges, but sometimes obstacles pop up. Kind of like mountains at a beach vacation, and they just throw us off. Right now, we're kind of in the middle of staring at an obstacle together, a big mountain that just kind of emerged in the middle of 2020. And we stare at this big COVID-19 mountain and recognize that there's a whole lot of other mountains that have been created because of this other big obstacle in our way. These weren't obstacles we were expecting. And in fact, we're kind of frustrated with them. Right now, we are in a worship series called Move Mountains. And we are reminded in this worship series that Jesus said to his disciples that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will be able to move mountains. And so through this series, we're looking at trying to have faith, trying to increase our faith so that we can step out into those places where God is calling us. Last week, we said we've got to recognize how God is on the move. That helps us increase our levels of faith. Today, we're just going to recognize that sometimes mountains are obstacles. And as we look at those obstacles, we recognize that they are uncomfortable, but we also know that we can trust in God and bless others while we look at those obstacles and as we face those obstacles. Next week, we'll explore how mountains provide some opportunities for us. And then after that, we'll look at the invitation to be a part of moving mountains. But today, we're going to look at those obstacles Mountains can be obstacles. They can be frustrating. They can be intimidating. And so for us as a faith community, we're going to look back to Abram. This is Father Abraham. And if you grew up in the church, you might know this song. Father Abraham had many sons. Had many sons had Father Abraham. And I am one of them. And so are you. So let's all praise the Lord. Right arm, left arm. Have you heard it? I wonder how many of you started singing along with me, right? My hunch is that many of you have heard that song. And if you haven't, you're probably lucky. But as a whole, we have this song, but more importantly, faith traditions that go back to Father Abraham. And Islam, Christianity, and Judaism all look to Father Abraham as the father of our faith. And so we come to Father Abraham, who's first Abram, in Genesis chapter 12. And through Genesis, we see, at the beginning of Genesis, we see humanity's struggle. It starts off good, and then it goes downhill. And then God says, you know what, I'm frustrated. I'm just going to start over again. And so we see Noah and the ark. And so God starts over again, and then humanity messes up again. And we have the Tower of Babel, where humanity once again is not trusting in God, not following God like they should. And so we see this up and down. And then we get to Abram in chapter 12, where it seems as though God is stepping into a relationship with humanity at a deeper and more intimate level. And so we come on Abram in chapter 12, verses 1 through 4. It says this, Now the Lord said to Abram, Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. The story of Abram starts when he's 75 years old. At age 75, a new mountain pops up into Abram's life. I mean, Abram is at the beach vacation era of his life, where he doesn't want to hike a new mountain. He doesn't want to start something new, right? He's got his routines, his homeland. Everything is set for this retirement, if you will, and a new obstacle pops up. But what Abram does is shows faith. He shows some trust in God that is absolutely beautiful and inspiring. Right? He could have easily said, you know what, I'm 75 years old. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. I don't need this in my life. And although I would love to have kids, and it's just too much. And he could have told God no, but instead he trusted in God. And it says that he gets up and he moves at age 75 into a more uncomfortable and more challenging space. I wonder if you and I might have that same trust in God that Abram did. As new mountains and obstacles come in our path, I wonder if we might be able to say, all right, God, I'm going to go forward with this. I'm going to approach these obstacles in the same way that Abram approached this obstacle. And I get it. If we all had that conversation with God in the same way that Abram had a conversation with God, many of us would jump up and go, yeah. But the obstacles we're facing now don't really feel like God coming to us and saying, hey, I've got this blessing in front of you. I want you to go forward and do this. Instead, it feels like these mountains have just been thrust up in front of us. These obstacles have been placed there. And sometimes it's easy to forget that God is with us in the midst of it. Abram was able to hear God speaking to him. And I truly believe that if you and I listen, we will hear God speaking to us as we approach obstacles. It means that we need to still our hearts and our minds. It means we need to cultivate a prayer life where we practice silence and contemplation. It means we need to be engaging with the scriptures to let God speak to us through them. It means we need to create space in our lives where we are listening to God. But when we do that, we will hear God in a still small voice, in a holy nudge, something welling up within our heart. And as we look at these mountains and as we recognize the obstacles that come with them, we might also be able to trust in God, knowing that God is with us and that God is going to lead us each and every step of the way. Abram teaches us to trust in God, and I think that's the first part for us as we recognize that mountains can be obstacles. But Abram teaches us something important as well, that as we face obstacles, we need to think about blessing others. See, Abram, when he heard this, could have easily said, you know what, I want children, but it's okay because I'm 75 and maybe I could just get past this because this is too much work. But when God comes to Abram, it's not just about Abram and his immediate family. In verse 3, it says, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. God is saying to Abram, when you trust in me, when you take these steps of faith, you are going to bless the entire world, all of humanity. See, Abram was able to trust in God and take some steps towards these obstacles because he knew it wasn't just about him. It was about the many generations that would be following him. That blessing after blessing for other people would happen if he could take these steps towards this obstacle now. As you and I look at the obstacles that are in front of us, it's really easy to just focus on ourselves and say, man, I don't want to do this because it's difficult for me. But I wonder if we might have that mindset of thinking, how can we bless others as we face these obstacles? How can I bless others as I face this mountain and try to climb it? How can I bless others? How will the actions that I take, the faith that I show right now be a blessing not only to my family, but to my community and to the world around me? When we do that, we're able to look at these mountains in a different way. We're able to see these obstacles as opportunities to trust in God and to bless those around us. I think there's one final lesson that we can learn from this story right here with Abram as we learn to look at mountains and recognize them as obstacles. Abram had a slip up. And this didn't enter the children's song. We don't talk about it in Sunday school very often, but in Genesis chapter 12, verses 10 through 20, we get this other side of Abram. Right in these first verses, Abram is this man who trusts in God and he seeks to bless others. I'm like, yes, I want to be like him, and hopefully we can learn from him. But he forgets to trust in God with each and every new obstacle that he faces. See, after they arrive in their new land, they're there for a bit, and then a famine comes. And so Abram and his wife Sarai have to move to a new place because of the famine. And so they head to Egypt. And as they're heading to Egypt, I imagine them on camels or donkeys, and they're riding together. And Abram looks over at Sarai and says, you know what, you're beautiful. And Sarai just gets super flattered. She's like, man, after all of these years, Abram, you are so sweet. I love your compliments. And then Abram says, you are so beautiful that when we get to Egypt, I'm scared that the Pharaoh's going to see you, want to have you as his wife, and he's going to kill me to get to you. So in order to keep myself safe, we need to say that you are my sister. And then the Pharaoh can take you as his wife, and I'm going to be safe. Not the most romantic thing that's ever been said to a spouse, right? And in fact, this happens. They get to Egypt, and the Pharaoh's men see Sarai, and they're like, Pharaoh, you should go have a conversation with her. And they end up getting married. And Abram all the while is like, hey, so glad, Pharaoh, that you were able to marry my sister. This is awesome. and things kind of start spiraling down for a bit. Father Abraham, like this man who showed so much faith and trust in God in these first steps, finds a new obstacle, this famine and this moving to a new land, and he forgets to trust in God. He forgets to think about blessing others with each and every decision. And he lets these obstacles become all about him, and he hurts those around him. Abram would later redeem himself, and Abraham and Sarah would be the father and mother to many, many nations, and would truly bring about blessings to the whole world. But as they faced obstacles, there were times when it was difficult for them to rely on God, and they forgot to rely and trust in God. They were human, just like you and I are human. And so with each and every mountain that pops up in front of us, with each and every obstacle that pops up in front of us, we have to make sure that we are fully trusting in God and listening to God and making that space available to hear God speak to us as we look at these obstacles and discern how we are supposed to go about facing them. And then we need to face those obstacles, figuring out how we might bless others in the midst of it. And as we do that, you and I are going to march forward towards these mountains that you and I did not want to have, these challenges that we'd much rather have go away. But they're obstacles in front of us right now. So may you and I trust, and may you and I figure out how we might bless others as we face these obstacles together. Amen.